It was just over a year ago that Calvin Ridley was suspended for a year for wagering on NFL games. Although not the first, he represented the first marquee player to be found in violation of the league's gambling policy in the modern era. You can go back to Paul Hornung and Alex Karras back in the 60s, and they were suspended for gambling. But it was April of this year where multiple players on the Lions and also a player on the Commanders received varying suspensions for placing bets on games. And now we fast forward a little over a month later, and Isaiah Rodgers is under investigation. They called it habitual betting, that reportedly including wagers on his own team. Now, he's a sixth-round pick back in 2020, looking to start for the Colts this year. That's in jeopardy. And not much else is really known about this. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk will join us coming up a little bit later on. But with the NFL and other professional leagues going all in on gambling, it's clearly an alarming trend that only looks to be growing. Now, I did talk to somebody with the league office who said, the system works. We caught him. I go, okay, I guess you could look at it that way. It feels like in reading some of these reports, some of these players may not really realize what they can and can't do, where they can and cannot do it. If these bets were placed in the facility, is there insider information there? Did you bet against your team? Did you bet for your team? Are you betting on other sports there? So there's gray area here. And the NFL should have seen this coming. I'm sure they did. But if the players are going to seminars, are they hearing this? Do they tune it out? Do they even care about it? But now, Calvin Ridley, it cost him $11 million. That should get your attention. And I was wondering, did the NFL use Calvin Ridley, who's now with Jacksonville, to talk to rookies at a seminar? Did they do something with, maybe it's a Zoom call, where Calvin Ridley talks to them about, hey, I did this and it cost me that? And I don't know if you can get through to somebody who, if they have a gambling problem or they don't think they have a gambling problem and they can get away with it, there's just a lot attached to this right now. And it's not going away because it's, the public is betting. Everybody's betting. Why can't I bet? Hey, I'm only betting a little bit. That's not a big deal. Hey, I bet on my team to win. Go back to when Pete Rose, this was when I was still at ESPN, admitted to me that he bet on the Reds to win. All of his bets were to win. Well, you can still manipulate a lineup as a manager. And, do I think Pete only bet on the Reds to win? I do not. I think Pete was trying to win. And that's the thing that I worry about. Having been a gambler and knowing that you get into a position where now all of a sudden you get a little nervous. I don't want to say desperate, but you get a little nervous. Hey, I'm down $3,000. Well, I could use this information here and I could maybe get that money back. It happens. It happens with everyday bettors. Or you'll go to Vegas. All of a sudden, hey, I have this much to lose. And then you lose that and you go, maybe I'll get some more money. This happens. And why do we expect these football players to go, no, I don't have a gambling problem, or I could get away with this. Somebody's got a burner account here. I could use that. And, these aren't marquee names yet. But that's where, the quarterbacks make so much money. You would think that they would not be tempted to do something like this. But this is a sixth-round draft pick and final year of his contract. Maybe looking to make a little scratch. He's a solid player, kick returner, defensive back. But, nobody thinks it's serious until somebody else looks at it and finds out and says, no, it's really serious. You can't be gambling. We can't have anything to do with gambling associated with our players. You can't. The integrity of the shield. Even though we've blurred the lines here, and it feels like it is commonplace. The NFL is in business with gambling. And once they figured out how much money they were going to make, they were all in on gambling. It's the same with the other sports. Nobody wanted it until they all wanted it, until they figured out what they were going to get. Well, the players are probably saying, hey, you guys are making money. Why not us? But I would have had Calvin Ridley in front of those rookies. I would have had him, and this is what I argued about Pete Rose. If Pete would have done this and gone to minor league facilities, talked to teams, talked to players, and really became almost a resource for baseball to help. He could have worked for Major League Baseball. And I think Pete would have been on the ballot and maybe gone into the Hall of Fame. But Pete wouldn't do that. But Calvin Ridley, I would have said, look, this is part of your punishment and your rehab. We want you to talk about this so people understand. And Pete Rose should have done the same thing. Hey, I did this. This is why I did it. I placed bets. He doesn't even have to get specific as much as say, it could happen to me, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. But you get caught up, you get competitive. If you have that gambling gene in your DNA, it's addicting. Then you get down. Now you got to get back up. How do you get back up? Hey, I got some information. Hey, the quarterback twisted his ankle. He's not 100% this week. Then you tell your buddy that. That's how these things work. Everybody's looking for an edge. That's why the NFL lists the injury report. They want to make sure everybody has the same information. That's why you've had, gambling outlets looking to hire NFL insiders as a full-time job. Hire Adam Schefter or Jay Glazer. They're finding out information that helps them. That's a valuable, valuable commodity here. But this is where we are with the NFL and other sports. You had gambling with college baseball recently. Somebody placing a bet in Cincinnati had to do with Alabama baseball, and it's a coach who's involved in this, a manager. So the tentacles spread out. You see a tree and you go, oh, okay, that's a nice tree. And those roots go a lot of different ways here. And that's what's happening with gambling when it comes to sports. And look, we have a great partner in DraftKings. But I caution you all the time. If you're going to gamble, just understand you're not going to win. You're just not. You'll win in the moment. But it's really hard to beat the odds. It just is. If you're disciplined and you do it and you want to have fun doing it, but if you think you're going to make a living, think again. I always say entertainment purposes only, because I went down that road. I know what it's like. And I made money, but I know what it's like when all of a sudden you don't have $2,000, $2,200 after the loss. And now your next bet is really important. So just so you know, it can happen no matter how much money you make. And Pete Rose had everything. It's addicting. It'll get to you. And if it does, there's somebody who's going to be selling somebody out here in one of these sports. They just will, because they can get inside information. The value of that